All right, we're back still with Learning Guide 6 now. We're nearing the end and we are on what's called sigma notation. All right, so when you see this, this sort of E-shaped letter, that's called sigma. And what sigma is just a Greek letter. All right, it's a Greek letter. And it just means it's a summation of a bunch of numbers, summation. Okay, so why do we use it in math? Well, it's used because it's sort of a cleaner way. It's a cleaner way or a shorthand for representing a pattern of numbers. Okay, that's why we use it, pattern of numbers. Okay, so let's just have a quick look before we get into it. So I'm just going to give us some numbers. Let's say we had 1, and then we added 2, then we added 3, then we added, and we kept going. And let's say we went all the way to 19 plus 20. All right, so to clean this up, this ... stuff in business, we use the summation. So the summation is a sort of Greek letter here. And then we have a couple parts to it. We have where we want to start, and I'm going to use I as the index, and I put 1 there. And where we end at, 20, and now the formula right here is I. Now watch how this makes sense. Because the first term right here is 1. So if I put 1 into there, I get 1. Then the second term is 2. So if I put 2, and then so on. And if I sum it all up, I get my answer. Okay, the sum. Whatever 1 plus 2 plus 3 is. All right? So that's why we use the summation. There's times when we use it, and here's an example where we have 2 plus 5 plus 8 plus a bunch of numbers to say, 56. Now this is something you've seen before. This was done in grade 10, grade 11, and we did a little bit in grade 12. This is a sequence, and it's going up by 3 each time. So that's an arithmetic sequence. And we have this formula that we've been using, and we're going to use it again, where we plug in what we know. So we know 2 plus n minus 1, and the difference is 3. We rainbow in, so we get 2 plus 3n minus 3, so we get 3n minus 1. All right, this, all that work I just did is the formula. It's the equation. So I can just put my summation, that's it, and we are starting off at a certain number. I have to find that number by doing, the math we did over earlier, put that number there, and then I can say I equals 1. So this stuff, this formula stuff, is stuff that we already did. All right, so there is what it all looks like. The n at the top is what the ending point, what number I'm getting to. This is where I start at, so that's called the upper limit, the lower limit, and this is the equation. Okay, so let's try some examples here. So right off the bat, I have a question, and I did this example right here. Let's just look at it. There's a question you get, and there's the answer, but how did I get that? So watch how I did it. So we have the upper limit is 3, and the lower limit, that means we're starting at 0. And this is the equation. So all we're doing is just going 2. We start off at 0, so 0 goes there, and then plus 1. So we're just inserting these numbers. So we got 0, and then we have 1, so 1 goes in there. Then we have 2, and then we have 3. All right? So we put all those into our calculator, and that's how we get 16. So let's try this one. I'll do this one, and then you guys can practice B and C. So watch. So I have the formula 1 plus k. All right. Now I'm taking the k out because I'm starting off with 3 here, so 3 goes there. So I get that total. Then I add it to the next one, 1 plus squared. Now I'm putting in 4, because remember I'm starting at 3, going to 4, going to 5, going to 6, right? Because that's where I end up. So these are the ones that I'm putting into each of the brackets. Okay, so I did 3, now there's 4. And then I do the next one. 1 plus bracket squared. All right, so I add that one and I put in 5 because it's next. All right, and then I add 1 plus bracket squared. And now I put in the 6. And then I type all that into my calculator. And out comes a total of 90. That's the summation of that. So it's basically just writing the formula, plugging in, and chugging it along with your calculator. So the key thing is go to 6. That's where I end. Okay, so it has to end at 6. And the 3 is where it started. Okay, so you try these guys, and I'll put the answers up so you can pause and work out the answers. So 55 is the answer to that guy. And down here we have 45. All right, let's move on to topic 2 now. Well, topic 2 is doing the reverse. I have some sequences, or series, pardon me, and now I want to get the summation, the sum. All right. Okay, so the summation. Okay, so let's look for a pattern here. Well, if you look at this, the pattern we can see is that, to me, it looks like it's going up by 2 each time. And it is. So we're adding 2, I'm adding 2. So now right away I think, oh, this is an arithmetic pattern, arithmetic sequence. So it just goes back to what we did earlier. So I write my formula down. All right, and then just put in what I know. So 3 plus n minus 1, and the difference is 2. Always tidy up, always tidy up. All right, so we get 3 plus 2n minus 2. And so these guys are like terms. So I have my equation as 2n plus 1. So we have the summation. And we got our equation, 2n plus 1. And where am I starting off? Well, you can put n is 1, right? Because if I put n as 1, it makes total sense. Because if I take this 1 and put it into that n, well, what's 2 times 1 plus 1? Well, it's 3. See, there's a 3 there at the beginning. So that's where I start. And now, where am I going to? Well, how many numbers are there? Well, I can just count. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. So that would be 4. So there is the answer to that one. Okay, so now they're not always going to be an arithmetic or a geometric sequence. Sometimes it's just patterns of numbers we have to recognize. So right here, I'm looking at half to 2/3 to 3/4. I notice that the bottom is one more than the top. So I think, okay, what's the pattern here? Well, I can see that if I put I, because the top is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so that's I, and the bottom is just one more than I. Because remember, I can call this T1. If I put this 1 into the I, into this formula I'm just building, if I put that into there and that into there, I get 1/2. There it is. Remember the next one, this one is T2, right? So if I put 2 there, I get 2/3. So the pattern is developing. So there is the equation. So let's do our summation sign. So now I know it's got to be 1. So I equals 1. And how many do I have? I have, let's count them up. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's right there, 8. So I didn't have to do too much counting there. Okay? So there is the formula. Now going back, some people say, well, why do some questions have I's in the formula and I's here and some have N's? My general rule is that if I'm using arithmetic sequences or if I'm using geometric, because they have N's in it, I leave those as N. These pattern ones, where you see a pattern, I generally leave it as I. Pardon me. This is going up by times by 3 each time, right? So I know there's going to be a geometric, because we just did this. So this is going to be a geometric sequence going on here. Okay, so we just did that. So I can just write the formula out. All right, so this is just plug and chug time now, you guys. So we go 1, ratio is 3, n minus 1. Done. So now I can write my summation is 1, 3, n minus 1, put n equals 1, and we have 5 terms there, and there's the answer. Okay. Now the bottom one, to me, it's going up by a ratio as well, because if you look at here, you look to there, that's 1/4 of that, that's 1/4 of that. I'm timesing by 1/4 each time. See, it's 1/4, it's times 1/4, and kept on going. So I know I have a ratio of 1/4, so therefore I know that I'm using this formula again. All right, so the first term is 2 bracket. The ratio is 1/4 n minus 1. So I have the sigma part of it, or the equation part of this, pardon me. And I know it's going to be at 1. But the problem in this situation, see all these little dots? I don't know how many n's there are. So now I have to use, again, that stuff we did earlier and find n. So if we use the same skills we used before, we get 8 there. So that's an 8. Okay? If you don't know this part, just go back a few lessons or a few videos and you'll see how to find n using that formula. All right? So I want you to try these guys, pause and check.